Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This is a show about Plymouth County real estate. The headline for the month was, "As the Summer Wanes, the Numbers Remain Strong." I have a great guest in the second segment of the show after we talk about our numbers for the month of August. And we always talk about some of our great Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. First, you're going to see a chart of sales of property. It is deeds recorded in August 2021. 1,026 deeds were recorded in August, more than the 968 recorded in July, 6% less than last August when 1,097 deeds were recorded. However, year-to-date, we're up 12% in the recording of deeds. You're going to see an image of sales all across the 27 communities of Plymouth County. Obviously, every community had some sales activity, Plymouth and Brockton being the highest, but every community had sales activity. The next image you're going to see is of mortgages. Clearly, we've had a very hot run with mortgages because of so many people refinancing. There were 3,020 mortgages recorded in August, also higher than July. July's mortgages were 2,619, down 3%, however, compared to last August, where there were 3,112. Still, year-to-date, we remain 24% higher than last year in terms of mortgages, and clearly our documents have been higher all year long from last year, despite all the COVID situations and despite a very low inventory. We still see a very low foreclosure recording number. There were only 4 foreclosure deeds recorded in August, less than the 8 recorded in July, less than the 8 recorded last August, and was 70% lower year-to-date in foreclosure deeds over last year. Clearly, there was a moratorium in place for many months, and that continues to have an impact on companies, mortgage companies, and people going forward on foreclosures. The foreclosure notices have bumped up a little bit. There were 10 foreclosure notices recorded in August, a little more than the 8 in July, 100% more than last July, but 47% less year-to-date. Again, the foreclosure moratorium has had a great impact on the filing of foreclosure documents. Both notices, which is the first thing that people will see when they're in trouble, recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and then the foreclosure deed, which actually takes back your ownership by your lender. And you're also going to see a listing of foreclosures by community. From Abington down to Whitman, there are a lot of zeros there. And once again, we expect that to change, but it's also just very much affected by the foreclosure moratorium. If you're concerned about something happening with your property, I advise you to sign up through our website for a free property fraud alert. You sign up, you give your email, and anytime there's something recorded, you get an email, and you can check it out and make sure it wasn't something that should have gone on record. We've had a huge increase in electronic recording during COVID. 80% of our documents come in over the internet. 50% of our documents on land court site come in over the internet. Training room has been closed. We hope that will be open by late fall because it's a great opportunity for people to get free training on how to navigate our site. And also, always beware of what you get in the mail relative to your property. There are scams out there. They'll promise you to get a copy of your deed for $47, $50, sometimes $75. You can get a copy of your deed for $1 a page at one of our offices in Plymouth at 50 Aubrey Street in Brockton on Belmont Street next to the Superior Courthouse, or in Rockland over in the Hingham Street Plaza. I have a great guest coming on the second segment of the show. Larry Hassan, a realtor at Keller Williams Realty, will be discussing the current real estate market. So we'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds. In this segment of the show, we always do something educational in nature. We've had commercial real estate brokers, we've had appraisers, assessors, a lot of realtors, they're the primary people in the real estate market. I happen to have a great guest today, Larry Hassan of Keller Williams Realty, who's a very experienced realtor, and I'm very happy you could join me on my show. Welcome.
An honor and a pleasure to be here, John. I'm really happy to be here.
So why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about how you ended up in the real estate community?
When I started in 1985. When I got my license, I was working in the restaurant industry, and a good friend of mine approached me. I've known him since the first grade. He said, "Hey, I'm getting my real estate license." I'm like, "Yeah, good for you." He said, "You should get yours too." I said, "Why?" He said, "Why not?" There's a long story to that, but we ended up getting our real estate licenses together. I actually took the course at Stonehill College at the time.
Sure.
And I did the testing over in Bridgewater. And I didn't get into it right away full-time. I stayed in the restaurant business, and I did the real estate part-time for the first couple of years, but I've been doing this since 1985.
Well, that's a lot of changes.
Many changes, with the technology and
Absolutely,
the way
yeah.
we do business now.
It's amazing to me about technology, how organized and far ahead the realtors are over many other professions.
Absolutely.
You can do everything on a tablet or on a phone. You do purchase or sales without even necessarily seeing them.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely helped the flow of the business. What I do like about the technology, like you had mentioned about the purchase and sale agreements, keeps everything in a neat, clean file.
Mm-hmm.
And the old days, back when we started, when I started in '85, everything was done in triplicate forms and handwritten. We worked with, a lot of people may not know or do know MLS. We used to get our information from MLS books.
Sure.
That were 2 weeks already out. Property had been on the market for 2 weeks by the time you got to the book. So,
And also the difference is your buyers seem to have a lot of information before they even come to you.
much better advantage for a buyer in these markets over the past, I'd say 15, 20 years, where they can get the information. It's a lot easier for the buyer to see the properties online with all the multiple photos and information. So it's a huge benefit to the buyer, and it's good exposure for the seller who have their home on the market too. So I think it's a win-win.
So tell our viewers about your business.
So my business, I work at Keller Williams Real Estate right now. I've been there, it'll be 11 years. I think it's gonna be 12 years in December. Been doing this for 36 years. I live in Brockton, I grew up in Brockton, and I do a lot of my business in Brockton, but I go all over. When you had asked me to come on, I looked at the Plymouth County map with all the towns. Is there only one city? Is it Brockton?
Yeah, Brockton's the only city.
So I think there's maybe only 3 towns I haven't sold in.
Yeah, this show, I burn a CD and send it out to all the local providers. So this will go throughout Plymouth County.
Okay. So, but doing it 36 years, right now I would say 95% of my business is either repeat or referral business, which is what you like to do
Right.
when you're in this business.
If they know you, you know them.
Yeah, or it's always nice to, I'm working with clients right now in Brockton. I sold them the house 18 years ago.
Wow.
And we're under agreement now, and we actually have an offer on another home that they're planning on moving to. So
Great.
it makes the
Soup to
job a
nuts,
little
taking care
easier.
of the whole thing.
Yeah, but it makes the job a little bit easier because now there's a level of comfort there that you're
good.
working with. So it's very interesting the way we've seen things go.
So how have you seen the market over the past 6 months?
In April, it started in March too, there was that frenzy. It was very frenetic. You put a house on the market, you think you had it priced at a certain price, and you'd have like 20 people showing up,
Competition.
and you'd
yeah.
have 15 offers. Prices going way above list price. In most cases, they are appraising out, but we have had some issues with them not appraising out. And this is not just Brockton, this is all over.
Sure.
But we've seen it level off a little bit. It's not as frenetic as it was in March, April, and May, but it's been very steady. Again, it comes down to, especially if you're working with a seller, you still have to price it right. There's always that little wiggle room on where prices go. Excuse me a little bit, I'm just,
Okay.
but it's been very steady. For the buyer pool, for the buyer market, the rates are really good. I met with some clients, I sold them a house about 10 years ago, and they're considering selling, but they weren't sure, but they just told me they refinanced from a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage at 2.75.
A lot of people have done that.
The rates, you must see a lot of the transfers, the refis, so.
Yes.
It's, even though buyers are paying a little bit more money for a home than they normally would expect to in these markets, they're getting good rates. You would ask me how I see things. A lot of people are talking about this is a bubble that's going to burst. And in my opinion, I do not think it's a bubble. I think we have a pretty steady economy. The workforce is getting better every week. We're seeing the reports now. I did hear, I don't know how, it's more of a lender question, but I heard something about the stock market having a couple bad days. But you can't really base it on the stock
Really
market.
bad day yesterday,
Yeah.
some better corrections today.
Right. But what I'm seeing, we're seeing buyers with really good jobs, really good down payments, and they should be able to sustain that mortgage payment. So I don't see this as a market coming as a crash. Some people are talking about it. I don't see that happening.
Is there still a very short inventory?
Yeah, that's where I would say right now the average time, if you're priced right in any market, the average time on the market is about 10 to 15 days.
Yeah.
Where you're going to at least receive an offer, so you have an accepted offer. You're not probably closing for another 30 days after that, but it's probably like about, it might even be a month's inventory is what, usually an even market is 3 to 4 months, maybe 6 months of inventory between the seller and the buyer.
So you see it continuing through the end of the calendar year?
I think it's going to be very steady. Last year, at this time, it was very steady, and we were talking earlier in 2019 before coronavirus. I was really impressed with how steady things were in November, December, and January, and February.
Right.
And then, things happened in March. And
Right.
as this market turned, I never thought it was going to be as busy as it's been.
I
So it's
agree
going to
with
be
you.
steady.
We used to have a lot more seasonal adjustments the last few years. It's been pretty solid all the way through the year,
Right.
even in January and February, which
Right.
are traditionally slower times. Yeah.
Usually it is. The only thing that will probably change it if we get some really bad weather, heavy snowstorms.
Right.
But other than that,
Right.
I've actually noticed over the past few years, even 2017, 18, into 19, during the winter months or even the fourth quarter has been very steady.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing about the technology is they can actually see what the property looks like in the good weather.
Yeah.
Even though you might have snow on
Right.
the roof or
Right,
on the
exactly.
on the lawn.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So if you were advising a potential seller, give me a few quick points, give our viewers, those that may be out there on the
Okay.
fence. First of all, whether now is a good time to list their property, and second, some short little things they can do without investing a lot of money.
There's, again, everybody's motivation for selling is, it's a different story. It really depends. If somebody has plans and they need to be doing something, even at this time of year, coming into October, November, December, it's still a great time to sell. And the market, we've seen prices at the highest level. So for people thinking of selling in this general area, they're going to do okay.
Right.
What I always recommend to them is you contact your real estate agent. You want to have them prepare a market analysis. As what I do is I will go over to the house. I'll look through the house if I haven't been in it before. And I'll advise on a few things depending on really what their plan is. If the house is in really good shape and they just need to do some general cleanup, that's fine. If it's a home that may need a lot of work and a lot of fixing up prior to going on the market and they can do it, they might need a little bit more time. But if you can clean up the yard a little bit, curb appeal is huge, a little bit of landscaping, sometimes a little bit of painting can go a long way. There's a lot of little things that you can do. I use checklists. So if I meet with a seller, if I was meeting with you, I'm going to give you a checklist. I'm going to say, these are things that I suggest you do. They're not have-to-dos, but there's a bunch of items on there that you can pick and choose to do.
So how often do sellers hire their own home inspector first to identify what a subsequent home inspector might do?
I have not had a lot of my
Okay,
clients
all right.
do that. So I would say, in my experience, it's a very small percentage. The topic does come up. My concern with that is if a seller does a home inspection,
Yeah,
it's their independent inspection, and they might think they've covered all the issues that
buyer.
a buyer would find out. Then the buyer's home inspector comes in, and they come and do their inspection. They usually find other things, so.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to do
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
But a very low percentage of my clients have ever done that.
So let's flip it around and say if you have a potential buyer coming to see you, what things must they have in advance, and what would your guidance be?
Always recommend talking to your lender first, making sure you have your documents in line, have the pre-approval ready, make sure they'll run a credit check, they'll check their work status, they'll check, where their down payment money's coming from. And there's a lot of good programs, whether it's a first-time home buyer or a second-time home buyer. You could do the mass housing financing, you can do the FHA financing. If you're a veteran, there's the VA, no money down. To me personally, if a buyer is not going to go to their lender first or go to a lender that we refer, I'm really not going to spend a lot of time. We need to get that part figured out first, because you need to know what your budget is. You need to know what your price range is going to be.
Right.
Then I have them come in and sit with me. I prefer, with coronavirus, a little bit different. We were doing things on Zoom. It's a little bit easier now, so we can sit in a room or have to wear a mask, or we sit
Right.
separately like we're doing
Right.
here, or distance.
Yeah.
And we can talk for I need 15 to 20 minutes just to kind of figure out what their plan is, where they want to live, what they were really looking for in a home. Are they comfortable with the price range? We do a lot of our contracts online. I can send them a lot of the details and examples of offers online before. So that's a good thing.
So I'm going to ask you a couple times during the
Okay.
conversation to share your contact information.
Okay. So Larry Hassan, Keller Williams Real Estate, Southeastern Mass. We're at 574 Washington Street. Did I say Southeastern? I think I
Yes,
did.
yes.
Phone number is 508-577-5812. That's my cell phone. That's probably the best number to reach me at. You can email me at Larry Hassan, that's one word, LARRYHASSAN @kw.com.
So give a little tip. You kind of mentioned some of the programs. My great concern with all this increased valuation on sales is how does a person become a first-time home buyer? We're always, as realtors do, promote what a wealth builder it is compared to renting. And it's just tough market for first-time home buyers.
It is. There are good tax benefits to owning a home. So if your principal interest and your taxes and your mortgage are, I don't know if they're all deductible, but there's a lot of deductions that you can take as a homeowner that you can't really take advantage of as a renter. Also, you're going to be building up equity. So what I advise all buyers that I work with, you got to be thinking long-term plan. If you're thinking, unless you're an investor and you're buying something that's a really short-term where you're going to turn it over, you're going to fix it up and sell it, I would always suggest that my clients think you're going to be in there at least 5 years minimum. Maybe this time around it could be closer to 10. You've got to have a long-term plan.
So I saw you came in with your realtor button. Let's talk about the
Realtor pin.
importance of being a realtor, not just a real estate person?
We're required to take continuing education courses every 2 years in order to keep your license. But in order to be a realtor, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years, you're required to take a code of ethics course every 2 years. So you're required to have that. And we abide by that. So if somebody is not a realtor, but just a practicing real estate agent, there is a bit of a difference. We have a lot more education, along with what we do at Keller Williams with the models of the training and the education models that we use. Being associated with the National Association of Realtors and the Mass Association of Realtors is a big deal for anybody working in this business.
And I think the code of ethics is important. That's something realtors really stress.
It's very important.
Great. So any final thoughts on where you think the market's going? Any other tips that you might come up with that people haven't thought about?
For buyers right now, when you're coming into the fourth quarter, this is still a good time to keep looking. I've had a lot of buyers over the years where they start wanting to back off if they haven't found any, because there's been a lot of disappointment with buyers. You could be making 5, 6, 7 offers and not get the home. But I explained to them, this is a good time to be looking, because there's always some homeowners that have been on the market a little bit longer than expected, and it's a good time to try to negotiate a fair deal for everybody. So going into the year end, coming up into January, February is a good time. I feel we're going to see a very steady market right through the holidays and right through the winter. Again, as long as we don't have any real crazy, well, who knows, you get all the snowstorms and all
No,
that.
I understand. And rates might bump around a little bit. The Federal Reserve has another
We
meeting
expect them to
coming
go up,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought they were going to be this low.
No, it's incredibly low for a long time, and even when they bump it up slightly, it's still going to be
Still a good rate.
historically low. Yeah.
When I got into the business in '85, I think the rates were at 14.
Right.
And I remember they
None
came
of
down
those
to
days.
9 and 10, and we were like, wow, this is great.
Great. So share your contact information one more time.
Larry Hassan at Keller Williams Real Estate, Southeastern Massachusetts. My phone number is 508-577-5812. And again, the email is larryhassan@kw.com.
Great, thank you.
Pleasure.
It's always good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Easy, right? Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Somebody
just
like you that
hot
knows how to
in here.
talk. Yeah, I'm ready. I might as well keep going, right?
Yeah, you can go.
How many minutes was that?
That was 6.
Good, perfect. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I want to thank Larry Hassan for the great job he did describing everything that's going on in the real estate market from his perspective as a very experienced realtor. In this segment of the show, we mention our holidays for the month, and we talk about some of our Plymouth County records and then one of our Plymouth Colony records. So September 6th was Labor Day. The 10th, Rosh Hashanah ended. The 11th was a Patriot Day, 9/11 Day. On the 12th was Grandparents' Day. The 15th, Yom Kippur. 18th, National Cheeseburger Day. Coming up tomorrow at the taping of the show is the autumnal equinox, the beginning of fall. 26th is Gold Star Mother's Day. And the 28th, National Drink Beer Day. So let's go to one of our very well-known county records. So Daniel Webster, a lot of people remember him, was a senator from Massachusetts, and he eventually lived in Marshfield. There's a place you can visit down there, the Webster Estate. But Daniel Webster was born in New Hampshire. He was educated and trained in the law. He established a practice in Boston in 1820. And interesting because we just finished up the 2020 celebration for the Plymouth 400. Daniel Webster gave the oration in 1820 for the 200th anniversary of the arrival of the Mayflower, and is still looked on with fascination today for the great job he did. But as a lawyer, he came to national prominence in many Supreme Court decisions. His record in the House of Representatives and his celebrity as an orator in the Senate has made him one of the most well-known and popular senators of all time. He was Secretary of State to President Harrison and re-elected to office and appointed Secretary of State again by President Fillmore. He was officially named by the Senate of one of its most 5 outstanding members. And the deed is part of this. If you go online, you can look at it. Is a part of the purchase that he made from a site in Marshfield formerly owned by the Thomas and Winslow families. The next notable record is one related to the Jewish holidays that just passed. Dewey Stone lived in Brockton. He was a Brockton industrialist, philanthropist, and he assisted in the founding of the nation of Israel. He was born in Brockton in 1900, became a leader of the Brockton and Jewish communities. He served as a sergeant in World War I, graduated with a business degree from Boston University, and their family owned Converse Rubber Company. But his role in the funding of the refugee ship exodus to bring Holocaust survivors from France to Palestine and the founding of the State of Israel is how he's best remembered. He had a relationship with President Truman's former business partner. During the United Nations debate, Harry Truman was a haberdasher. He sold hats, and his partner was Jewish and a friend of Dewey Stone, and together they got President Truman's attention, and that is how the United States of America honored the founding of the nation of Israel. Stone was a founder of the Weizmann Institute of Science, and there's a building at Brown University named after him and his brother, Harry Stone. And last but not least, as we get closer and closer to the playoffs in baseball, and also in recognition of the Jewish holiday, Irving and Sidney Franklin were from Brockton. They were scrap leather dealers, and they began using the leather extras from the shoe industry to put together leather goods. Their company, later known as Franklin Sports, has become one of the most recognized sporting goods supplier in the world. Their father was a shoe worker, and again, they were scrap leather dealers. They operated out of a factory in the Lithuanian village, and their first product were footballs. They had tremendous promoters like Joe Namath, Terry Bradshaw, Sugar Ray Leonard, Cal Ripken, and they're very much known for the production of batting gloves. If you watch any of the games this weekend or in the playoffs, when the batters come to the plate, look what they have on their hands. And most often you'll see a Franklin emblem on those batting gloves, and that started with scrap leather dealers in the city of Brockton. Our last notable is a colonial record, and it really is quite a fascinating one. We at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds have on the second floor a temperature and humidity control vault. We work with the Plymouth County Commissioners to build this out. It has a vault and a reading room, and inside the vault are the original Plymouth Colony records in the handwriting of the colonists, from the first deed to the will of Miles Standish and others. But in the records, there is also a written description of what the passengers on the Mayflower did. They were supposed to go south down towards Virginia, somewhere a little south of Manhattan, but they ran into shoals, turned around, came into Provincetown Harbor. Their patent was no good because they were out of the jurisdiction, so they wrote up a document later known as the Mayflower Compact. Many people signed that document and agreed that it would be a civil body politic. However, that document was lost for the ages. Thankfully, there's a record of that, of what they agreed to in the colonial records that I'm talking about, and there's also reference to it in William Bradford's great Diary of the Plantation of Plymouth Plantation. So I want to thank Luna Green Baker and Christine Richards for helping me put this show together. Brockton Cable Access has been a great partner. This is my 131st show. Today, Isaac Cabral was a great help here at Brockton Cable Access. So have a great month as we head into fall. I hope you all have a great fall, and we'll see you next month.